it's Book Chick again. I thought it was time to go ahead and do my November wrap up or November book review. So, yeah, it is currently the 27th. I don't see myself finishing any more books before the end of November, unless they're like incredibly short, and I'm not currently reading anything super short. Um, so yeah, I'm probably not gonna finish anymore. Um, Anyway, let's get into it. But before we do, if you're not already subscribed, if you would just go ahead and subscribe and hit the little bell icon here on this channel. I review books. I talk about books that I'm planning to read, and I talk about books that have not come out yet. So I am on NetGalley, which allows me to read books ahead of time, so that I can tell you what I think about them before you even have the ability to buy them. I try not to do that too far ahead of time, um, but like maybe at the earliest on the day that they come out. Um, so yeah, let's get into it. The next book that I read was Silent Night by Nell Pattison. So this one I actually really enjoyed. This one I gave 5 stars because it is a murder mystery, but it's a murder mystery in which the main character is a sign language interpreter, specifically a BSL interpreter. So she's a British sign language interpreter. Um, which if you know me, then you know that I took ASL in college as my foreign language, which is American Sign Language. So I really enjoyed this book because it is the first book that I've ever read that actually mentions the deaf community and talks about like some of the prejudices that they face, some of the issues that they face. Like we talked about in class a couple of times the difficulties finding an interpreter if you're like in the hospital. And the main character is one of these interpreters, and she has decided to do freelance, which means that whenever someone in the community needs her, she can hopefully be there, like a lot faster than she would be if she were working with an agency that would dispense her like maybe as much as 2 or 3 days later, from an accident or from a police case. So, but in this series, she's mostly working with the police, which is what we follow. We follow her working with the police, mostly in murder cases. So in the beginning of this book, it like we're at the murder scene. So we know that there has been a murder, but she doesn't know that yet. So far as she knows, it is just a missing child, which is not a just, like that's still a huge deal, but no one knows that anyone has been murdered yet. So as we continue through the book, like within like the next 20% of the book, I would say, they find the body. Uh, and the way that it looks like the missing child has committed the murder. And so we follow them back. They had gone on a field trip, okay? And so we follow them back from the field trip to their deaf school. And like follow it's like very much like the private school vibes, you know, and like something there are lots of secrets, like there's a lot happening, and it's just really good. And I really enjoyed that the writer had kind of the wherewithal to know that it would be confusing for the book to be in 2 different languages, but still like written in English. So um, she had all the like signed conversations, all the conversations in BSL, British Sign Language, in italics, and all of the spoken conversation in like regular font. And I just found that really interesting because I was like, I don't know that everyone would have thought of that, and it just made it like that much clearer who was speaking and when, and like which parts were being signed. And I found myself like thinking through like American Sign Language and being like, but that's not how they would say, like that's not how they would sign this, but like That's what my brain was doing. Um, but yeah, and like I didn't know who the murderer was until like the last 10% of the novel. Like I'm not that great at guessing, but I still had no like I had no idea. Like I thought this person was like, "Oh, they're just acting weird," but I don't think that they're the murderer. Like that would be a weird twist, but I didn't see that coming. Honestly, the most terrifying character in this book was Paige's ex-boyfriend. He is nuts. And he said some things that were just like totally spine chilling. Like, he is the abusive ex, which I guess this is the second novel, so like we know about that in the more in the first novel. Um, but some of the stuff that he said was just like, oh, what a creepy guy. But yeah, so I gave this 5 stars. I won't say much more because I'm afraid that I will tell you who the killer is. Um, yeah, the next novel that I read was Last Call by Cathi Stoler or Stoller. I only gave it 3 stars because it was again kind of like it was okay. I would say it's a quick, fun read. It is again a murder mystery. November was the month of murder mysteries, it seems. Or, no, I guess not. I only read 2. But I have another one that I need to read that I just haven't got to yet. Anyway, it was a quick, fun read, but it bugged me because it seemed like the main character didn't have much common sense. Um, so basically, she owns a bar. That's why it's called Last Call, because, last call before you have to leave. Um, but she owns a bar, so it's kind of a different setting because it seems like a lot of these kind of mysteries are set in like bakeries or coffee shops, and so this was different. It was set in a bar, and so I found that really interesting, and so I requested it from NetGalley. Um, but it is set starting on New Year's Eve, and so it is like crazy busy. There are all kinds of revelers, and so her name is Jude Delane. She is pouring like all kinds of champagne and drinks for people, her and her staff, and but she has like a second to like talk to some of her regulars who she really enjoys. She calls them the 10th Street or regulars because they come in fairly often, but not super often. So she has a second to talk to them, and one of them has brought his little brother, who's like just in from town. He's like in from university or something, and they're like visiting, and they have a minute, and then the little brother's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to like this other party, and so they're like, oh yeah, whatever, go have fun. And so she doesn't really think anything of it. Like, life is perfect, life is calm, like nothing's happened. This is the second book, so like we know that there has been at least one other murder in her life. This is the second book, so like and it's a murder mystery, so we know something is going to happen. But right now she's like, oh, life is good. She goes upstairs after, cleaning up all the New Year's mess, and crawls into bed and starts to go to sleep. And the next morning she gets up and she, starts prepping for like the next shift, like the next night. Comes in from taking out the trash and says that he has found a dead body in the dumpster. Now that made me think immediately of Crime Junkies. It's never a mannequin. Thankfully the busboy had the wherewithal to be like, that's clearly like a person, and he went and got help. Um, so goes out and like looks, and she's like, yeah, that's a body, and that's the little brother of one of my regulars who I met last night. She's like, great. But the kicker is that the murder weapon is still in the body, like it's still stabbed through his heart, and it is a knife that has been stolen from her kitchen. Yeah. So now she's praying that it's not any of her kitchen staff, but she, like, throughout the book, like, she starts to have these inklings that perhaps it's one of those 10th Street irregulars. But the part that bugged me, the part that made me give it 3 stars, was that or 3.5 stars, think 3 stars, was that she was not smart about her investigation. Like, yeah, she's gonna investigate. That's the nature of this kind of book. She can't stay out of it. That's what these main characters do. But she was not smart about it. Like, she knew that it was one of them, but she kept talking to them about how she thought it was one of them and like picking their brains for information and like trying to be sneaky about it, but she wasn't sneaky enough. Um, and like she would like go out and like go to the library or whatever and do some investigating or like go to the scene of one of the crimes, but like not be careful about being followed. And then like when she thought she was being followed, she wasn't careful about that either. Like she didn't stick to big crowds, like she didn't like start acting weird. So that's why I gave it 3 stars. But like it was a fun read. I think it took me like 3 days to read it. It's like a little over 200 pages. It's okay. But I think if someone specifically asked for murder mystery recommendations, I would suggest this. But I don't think if they were just asking for like book suggestions in general, like this would be one of the first ones that I would suggest. Just no. Like, I would say it was like a little bit more than mediocre. So I'm hoping that as the series continues, the writer makes Jude more smart about these kind of situations. And the last book that I have finished in November, so that is going to wrap up this video. Yeah, so I read 4 books this November. I'm going to do some quick math real quick and figure out how many pages that is. So far, this month I have read 1,030 pages. Like I said, I don't think I'm gonna finish another book this month, so that's why I'm going ahead and finishing this video. So I've read 1,030 pages and listened to, I believe, 9 hours plus, we'll say 4.4. And I've listened to a, like 13 hours and 40 minutes of audiobook. I went ahead and started The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson, which I quite like so far. And Smash It was 9 hours. So 13 hours and 40 minutes thus far. But yeah, that is my November book review. So if you liked this video, go ahead and hit like and subscribe like I said earlier. But yeah, that's all. So I suppose I will see you again later.